This is a WE Galaxy G-Series Airsoft pistol. But it's not just any WE Galaxy. This one has a little bit of something special inside. Specifically, I'm talking about this. The TTI CNC Rotary Hopup. This, I think, is a game changer for the WE Galaxy series and is something that essentially every single WE Galaxy owner should be getting and installing. Keep watching the video and I will show you exactly what this is, why it's so good, and how to install it. Before we talk about the TTI CNC Hopup unit and barrel in detail, I do want to go briefly over what exactly the WE Galaxy is. The WE Galaxy came out not too long after the wild success of the AAP01. This is an example of the AAP01 if you're not that familiar. This one actually is missing the internals and it has an aftermarket trigger, but you get the idea. They're obviously fairly similar. They're both supposedly based upon the Ruger Mark IV actual firearm. The WE Galaxy is certainly much closer to the Ruger Mark IV. This upper is almost exactly a copy of the Ruger Mark IV, and it looks a lot more like a real firearm in that sense. The Galaxy also has a variety of lowers. It has this G-Series style lower. It also has a 1911 style lower, and though it's not out as of the time of this video, the Hi-Capa style lower is soon to arrive. In addition, it has colorful aluminum uppers. So in competition, sort of what everyone said was the AAP01 was a bit cheaper. The AAP01 also generally performed a fair bit better. One of the bigger downfalls of the WE was that it didn't perform quite as well as the AAP01. Moreover, aesthetically speaking, if you wanted that colorful aluminum upper, there's now some aftermarket options for the AAP01 for aluminum uppers. I have a separate video on these AAP01 aluminum uppers. If you want to see it, you can check it out. So let's take a look at exactly what the WE Galaxy stock Hopup looks like, why it's considered to not be very good, and ultimately why this TTI replacement Hopup fixes so much wrong with the WE Galaxy. First off, you need to take off the upper of your WE Galaxy. You can do that by pushing out this pin here. It's a bit stiff and recessed, do with just your hands. This is a captured pin, so you don't need to pull it all the way out, just make sure it's out far enough. And you press the back button and open it up. Sometimes I find this, moves back in a bit and pull it out there. So as you can see on the upper here, this is held in by the pin there. And now we can see the internals. You see, of course, the blowback unit here, and then the nozzle. You can see it move there. The nozzle is nice and sticky, giving good air seal. And this, of course, is the Hopup. Now you may think, there's no adjustment wheel there. And you're right, because this needs to be adjusted via screwing it in and out. So there's a few problems with that. One, of course, is that it's quite inconvenient. The other is that it's a little bit harder to have a good reference point to see how far you've adjusted it. A lot of people also found that it would seem to walk out, which is to say that due to the recoil of the gun firing, it would change a bit. It might be debatable whether it's actually walking out or whether it's just not that reliable in the first place. The other problem is, of course, when it's like this on the gun, putting this back on here, you can't really easily get at it. Theoretically, if you had a screw that was an L shape, you could probably do it without taking off the full gun. But most of the time, you're basically going to have to fully remove the upper in order to adjust your Hopup. And that's annoying. Now let's disassemble this some more and take the stock Hopup already out, and I'll show you kind of the issues with it, if you will. First, you need to take off two Phillips head screws here, which are what holds on this lug here that the retaining pin goes through. Then you have two hex screws. Then you need to screw off the end cap. I've added my own O-ring here, by the way, that won't be on a stock one. Then you need to take off this front cap, is the easiest way. Hopefully your front cap is finger tight. This actually came this way from the factory with some markings on it. Some of these markings are also from me having to take it off. One of the downsides of this front cap is that if it's too tight, the only real way you have to get it off is by using a wrench or something and taking it off from the front, and you can mess up your threading. a small little design decision that I'm not a big fan of, but I keep it on finger tight as of now and it works. And then you should be able to pull it right out. Like so. Note that due to the design of this upper here, it's actually straight all the way through. If you need to, you can actually take out all this stuff in the rear, and you can pull the hop up and barrel out to the rear as well if you have to for some reason. This is what the stock hop up looks like when you take it out. It's quite chunky. It's really actually very heavy. 116.7 grams here, which is really quite hefty. It's made of just this big chunk of cast metal, it looks like. Now to take the rest of this apart, we're first going to have to take out a little grub screw here. You can actually leave that in if you don't want to lose it, because all that does is it tensions onto this, and this allows us to take this out. You'll see here there's a spacer of sorts, and you may think that that's some sort of adjustment knob. It's not. It is purely just a spacer. The reason for this is because this part of the hop-up is the same, but then between the G series and the 1911 and presumably the Hi-Capa version, the size of this is actually different. So for this one, you need to have this spacer here. For the 1911 versions, it actually will go all the way in like this because the dimensions are a little bit different. Because of that, mind you, the TTI Hopup will actually come in different versions. This is the G series version I'm looking at. The 1911 version will have dimensional differences, but will be functionally the same. Once you have this unit out, this is held in by 2 Phillips head screws. And then once you have those off, it will pull apart like this. So here you see that the hop-up action is really only done by this one screw here, which screws in and out, and this one little arm here, which has a spring on it for tension. So screwing this screw out will allow the arm to come down further and bring the hop rubber down more and provide more hop. It's a perfectly functional system, but then it all kind of relies on some small parts here, and people reported that the screw would walk out a bit after getting moved around due to the recoil from the gun, etc., etc. And in general, the make of it is just a super heavy piece of metal, and it's not that elegant, and it doesn't work as well as it probably should. The other issue with the Galaxy's stock hop-up is also that it has a barrel and hop-up rubber that are not the standard GBB pistol format that we expect. These are actually not compatible with all your usual VSR style inner barrels and rubbers. So comparing this, the Wii Galaxy stock inner barrel with the Maple Leaf inner barrel on the left, you'll see that there's a size difference here. All the standard hop-up rubbers, like this is a Maple Leaf Autobot, very popular hop-up rubber for people to use. A lot of that's not going to work with the stock setup. So if you want to take a stock Wii Galaxy and swap around some stuff to make that hop up a little bit more consistent, maybe, you can't even do that with the stock hop up. And that, of course, is where these guys come in. The Wii Galaxy G Series CNC Hopup Chamber by TTI, and also they offer a 116mm barrel, which is the perfect length for the Wii Galaxy. Note this is also usable with the AAP01. This is a bit shorter than normal AAP01 barrels, which are typically between 129 to 131 millimeters. If you find your AAP01 is shooting a bit too hot and you want to lower that FPS a bit, you can consider grabbing one of these. So taking the contents out of the bag here carefully so you don't lose anything. You'll have a bag with your small stuff inside, a small manual, and then the CNC components here. The manual tells you basically how to install it, but if you're unfamiliar with this may be a little bit tough for some people to get, so I'll show you in detail in this video. Once you've taken everything out of its packaging, you have all your small components here, your screws, your springs, and your O-ring, and then your larger components, your CNC aluminum body components, as well as the TTI inner barrel here. The first thing we'll do is we'll prepare our inner barrel by adding the hop-up rubber. I've chosen a Maple Leaf Autobot 70 degree here. Maple Leaf is a very popular hop-up rubber, but you can use whichever one you desire. The inner barrel here has a cutout, and you want to line up the little protrusion. It's very easy to see with maple leaf because they're a little bit clear. You can pop that right on. You want to do a basic check to make sure that whatever protrusions are on your hop-up rubber are sitting in the window here, the cutout on the inner barrel, as expected. Also keep in mind that we have this little protrusion here on the hop-up rubber. Next thing you want to do is take your O-ring and put it into the slot on the main body of the CNC Hopup. Then you want to insert your inner barrel. Seeing this cutout here, which is only on one side, it's on the other side. You want this cutout to line up with that protrusion on the hop-up rubber I showed you earlier. And you want to push it all the way back until it's sitting nicely at the end of the body there. Next is maybe the trickiest part of the installation because you have some little parts that can fall off as you're doing this. This is the arm that will tension the hop-up rubber and bring the hop-up rubber part that's in that window down, which is what adds the friction to your BB and causes the backspin, which we call hop-up. I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna flip it out like this. And here you'll see two little places. One is a circular cutout, one is a little concave area. In the circular cutout, we're going to put a little spring. In the concave area, we're going to put what's known as a nub. I'm going to do this with needle nose pliers, just so you can see what I'm doing. Note that you don't actually have to do this, your fingers will suffice. So the spring here goes into the little circular cutout, and the nub here goes into that little concave area. Now you of course want to be careful these don't fall out. In order to stop them from falling out, I suggest you hold onto it and flop the body over, down like this, and then hold them in place with your finger to make sure that they don't fall out. So while we're holding this and we're tensioning the lever a little bit there to make sure that the spring and nub stay in place, I'm going to go and first insert the barrel spacer, which goes over the inner barrel here. Next, we're going to take the adjustment wheel, and having the larger part of the adjustment wheel go down the opposite side of the lever here. And you can press all this way home, and then this side of the adjustment wheel will be on top of the very end of that lever there and holding it down. Once we come this far, this lever should not pop up and we shouldn't lose that spring and nub, because not only is there a tension from the spring on the adjustment wheel, but also that O-ring we put on keeps the adjustment wheel nice and solidly on there. Next, we're going to have the front barrel section here and we'll put this on. However, you have an option here. This little hole right here is for this screw and plunger, which go and insert into the hole. What happens here is that once assembled, this little plunger interfaces with these little bumps, as you can see on the adjustment wheel. So if you put it in like this, you'll go and you'll hear this clicking sound from adjustment. However, we do have an O-ring there as well. If you want to not use this plunger, this should still function perfectly well. You'll actually be able to see here that lever right here going up and down. And this is smooth. So this will, if you use it, provide a little more security and ensure that it doesn't move at all. To be honest, it shouldn't move anyway. And then there is a chance that you could find that your perfect hop-up amount is somewhere between one of these two clicks. To be honest, it's fairly easy to take this out. I recommend you start out with the click because it gives you a good point of reference, and then chances are the adjustment amount is not that big. It's quite fine, and it's going to be a little bit more secure. I recommend you start out with that plunger, and then if you find that your perfect hop-up amount is somehow between one of these two clicks, you can take it out and have smooth adjustment like this. So whether you choose to have that plunger or not, you can go and you can press this home and then screw it in. Though you didn't see me doing it just now, it is recommended that you put some Loctite. I would recommend some low strength Loctite onto these screws as you put them in to make sure it doesn't come apart. Finally, we have holes for two little grub screws here, which you can screw down to make sure that there is absolutely no movement between the barrel and the hop-up unit here. The TTI barrel actually has also as well little cutouts on the outside of the barrel to make sure that those grub screws sit in exactly the right place and have no possibility of having any forward or backward movement, but you can still use the grub screws on any inner barrel. And there you have a fully assembled TTI CNC Hopup unit and inner barrel. And you can see here just how nice this sounds and feels when you adjust it. You can also look on the inside. I'd actually use this rubber a bit. It's a little bit dirty. You can see here just how nicely it adjusts. So this is all the way off. And it goes down. Now, one of the big benefits for a hop-up like this is that you can not just change out your hop-up rubber, but you also have this nub up here, which we saw us installing before, which you can change. And there's various aftermarket nubs with various shapes. So you have a huge variety of ways of adjusting this. You can adjust this so that it has clicks or not, and be smooth and have very fine level of adjustment. You can adjust the nub here and adjust the shape or depth of that nub. You can also, of course, adjust your hop-up rubber. And you can essentially do whatever you want to get yourself the perfect hop-up. Now we take our upper again and put this in with the feed ramp here, of course, going down like so. Then we need to put back these screws to lock it into place. Again, I'm not showing it here, but you may want to consider using Loctite on these. And then we put this piece back on. Then finally we put our end caps back on. You want to have this on finger tight. There's a small potential of it walking out, but if it's on too tight, you're going to need to use something to take it off and you might mess up your threading. So don't over tighten this. And then finally our end cap here. Like so. And you notice that the TTI inner barrel is sized perfectly for the Wii Galaxy here. And now that we put it back on to the lower, we have our completed gun. And you'll see here that now, all you need to do is press this back button, open it up, and you can adjust the hop up as needed. So it is now the Wii Galaxy, which before was frankly underperforming a bit compared to the AAP01, all of a sudden is a much more compelling offering. It has some variety of lowers, so you can have the G series lower, you can have the 1911 lower, or you can have the Hi-Capa style lower, which will soon come out, and you can have that excellent CNC hop up there, which really fixes the primary flaw of the Wii Galaxy. Before, to be honest, it was probably reliably the AAP01 was a better choice. Now, depending upon some circumstances and depending upon what you want, the Wii Galaxy with the CNC hop-up is, I think, actually a solid option for people who are looking to get one of these kind of 22 style airsoft pistols. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope that the installation instructions and outline were clear. If there was anything you had questions about, please leave it below in the comments, and I will get back to you.